The jungle thrummed with life. Birds chattered overhead, monkeys shrieked from the canopy, and insects hummed in a chaotic symphony. Ethan stood beneath the gnarled branches of an ancient baobab tree, his camera resting against his chest. Sweat beaded on his forehead, the humid air clinging to his skin, but he barely noticed. Years spent chasing the wild had dulled the sting of discomfort. He lived for moments like this, raw, untamed glimpses of nature's beauty and chaos. Ahead, a small herd of elephants glided through the dense foliage, their massive forms parting vines and snapping twigs with quiet grace. Ethan's lens settled on the smallest one, a baby elephant wobbling on unsteady legs. It tripped over roots, strayed too far from the group, then scampered back, a clumsy explorer in a vast green world. A faint smile tugged at Ethan's lips. It reminded him of children testing their boundaries, fearless yet fragile. The baby's curiosity soon drew it toward a shallow clearing, a puddle glinting in the dappled light. Ethan followed, silent as a shadow, his boots sinking into the soft earth. He snapped photos as the calf splashed gleefully, its joyous trumpets bouncing through the trees. For a fleeting moment, the jungle felt like a playground. Then everything shifted. The baby froze mid-splash, ears flapping wildly. A high-pitched trumpet pierced the air as its trunk swayed in frantic arcs. It shuffled nervously, weight shifting between its feet. The jungle fell silent, too silent. Ethan's breath caught. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. He scanned the undergrowth and saw it. A slithering shadow, nearly invisible against the greenery. A python. Its thick, muscled body glided with lethal precision, eyes locked on the calf. Ethan's heart thudded against his ribs. He gripped his camera, knuckles whitening. "No," he whispered, the word barely audible. He wanted to shout, to drive the baby back to its herd, but fear rooted him in place. If the python noticed him, he could become its next target. Before he could decide, the snake struck, lightning-fast coils wrapping around the calf. The baby's desperate trumpet shredded the stillness as it writhed against the crushing grip. Ethan raised his camera, hands trembling, capturing the scene frame by frame. Anger surged through him, mingling with helplessness. He knew the rules of the wild. Interference risked more than just his safety. It could unravel the delicate balance of this world. Still, each weakening cry from the calf drove a shard of grief deeper into his chest. That ache wasn't new. It had lived in him since Mel slipped away. Ethan hadn't always been this man, standing alone in jungles with a camera and a heavy heart. He'd grown up in a gated community, a bubble of manicured lawns and identical houses. His parents, cautious to a fault, kept him sheltered from anything unpredictable. Adventure was a stranger, confined to the pages of books and the glow of video game screens. He'd been content in that quiet rhythm until Mel crashed into his life. She was a force of nature, fearless, vibrant, alive in a way Ethan hadn't known was possible. Their first date, a hike she dragged him on, left him scratched, sweaty, and buzzing with a thrill he couldn't ignore. With Mel, the world cracked open. They camped beneath star-strewn skies, trekked through jungles, and watched wildlife unfold in all its messy glory. She taught him to embrace the unknown, to find beauty in the raw edges of existence. 2 years in, their boundless journey shattered. Headaches turned to dizziness, then a diagnosis. A brain tumor, too advanced to stop. Surgery offered a sliver of hope, but complications stole her away. Ethan crumbled. For months he hid in their home, drowning in memories. The wild, once their shared sanctuary, felt unbearable without her. Then he found her journal, tucked among her belongings, its leather cover worn from travel. It brimmed with sketches and notes from their adventures. Her words, bold, alive, stirred something in him. "Keep going," they seemed to say. So he did. He picked up his camera and stepped back into the wilderness, not just for himself, but for her. This jungle trip, under the baobab's shadow, was part of that promise, a tribute to Mel's untamed spirit. Now, watching the python tighten its hold, that promise felt fragile. The baby's cries mirrored the helplessness he'd felt as Mel faded. He couldn't save her, and he couldn't save this calf. The jungle, for all its wonder, laid bare life's brutality. A low rumble snapped him from his spiral. The ground trembled, faint at first, then pulsing with rhythmic force. Ethan turned, breath hitching. The baby's mother charged through the trees, an unstoppable tide of fury and love, the herd thundering behind her. Their trumpets shattered the silence, a deafening war cry that sent birds exploding from the canopy. Dust swirled as the mother reached the python. With a swing of her trunk, she struck the snake's coiled body, the impact reverberating through the earth. Ethan flinched, the python hissed, rearing back, but the herd closed in. Trunks and tusks moved in unison, relentless and precise. The ground shook as they stomped, their weight crushing the predator beneath them. The snake's thrashing slowed, then stilled, a lifeless heap in the dirt. The mother turned to her calf, her massive frame softening as she nudged it with her trunk. The baby's trembling trumpet answered, weak but alive. She wrapped her trunk around it, pulling it close, while the herd formed a protective ring. Slowly, they retreated into the greenery, their victory calls fading into the distance. Ethan stood frozen, camera dangling from his neck. Awe washed over him, tinged with reverence. The scene replayed in his mind, the python's stealth, the calf's struggle, the herd's ferocious unity. It was more than a wildlife spectacle. It struck something deeper. The baby, alone, had been vulnerable, easy prey. Together, the herd became invincible, their strength a shield against the chaos. It reminded him of Mel. In her final months, she'd leaned on him, their friends, her family, a quiet strength drawn from those who loved her. Even as her body failed, she'd faced it with grace, buoyed by their collective support. Tears pricked Ethan's eyes as he wiped his cheek, gratitude swelling in his chest. For Mel, for the elephants, for the lesson they shared. Survival wasn't solitary. It thrived in connection. Back at his campsite, Ethan sank into a worn chair, laptop balanced on his knees. The jungle's hum wrapped around him as he scrolled through his photos. The baby's splash, the python's coils, the mother's charge. Each frame pulsed with life. He opened his blog, fingers hovering over the keys, then typed, "Today, I saw something extraordinary. A baby elephant, caught by a python, was saved by its herd's bravery and unity. This wasn't just survival, it was a reminder of what we become when we stand together. For Mel, who showed me how to live, I'll keep capturing these stories. What would you have done in my shoes? Share below." He clicked post. Within hours, notifications flooded in. The story spread, touching thousands, far beyond his usual readers. Comments poured in. Awe at nature's power, tales of loved ones' support in dark times. One stood out, "Alone, we're vulnerable. Together, we're unstoppable. Thank you." Ethan smiled, hearing Mel's voice in the words, her excitement at their reach. In the weeks that followed, purpose ignited in him. This wasn't just an escape, it was a mission, to share the wild's lessons, its beauty and strength, as Mel had done for him. One evening, after photographing an orca slicing through the waves, he whispered into the dusk, "Thank you, Mel. I'll carry you with me always."